It was a slow Tuesday afternoon at Maggie's diner, the kind of place where the smell of fresh coffee lived in the air and the soft clatter of spoons and forks filled the quiet spaces between conversations. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this. For almost 6 years, Lila Brooks had worked there, long enough to know every regular customer by name. She knew exactly how old Mr. Harold liked his eggs, over easy, just a tiny sprinkle of pepper. Lila wasn't just a waitress at Maggie's diner. She was part of the heartbeat of the place, a familiar face, a good listener, the reason many customers called it their second home. Life had been heavy on Lila's shoulders lately. Her mother's hospital bills kept piling higher and higher, no matter how much she worked. Her younger brother, Evan, struggled with college application fees and long nights of studying. Every time Lila thought she was catching up financially, something new pulled her back down. Still, every morning she tied her apron, pinned her name tag to her chest, and told herself, kindness doesn't cost a thing. That afternoon, as Lila refilled the sugar jars, the little silver bell over the front door jingled. She looked up to see a man step inside. He wore an old, frayed brown coat and shoes worn thin at the heels. His eyes stayed low, like he hoped no one would notice him. He shuffled to the counter and sat, his hands trembling slightly as he folded them. Lila approached with a warm smile. "Coffee?" she asked gently, already reaching for the pot. The man nodded quickly, fumbling with his wallet. A few coins clinked onto the counter, barely enough for a small cup. Across the room, behind the register, Mr. Hank Carter, the manager, watched with a frown. "If he can't pay," Hank muttered, just loud enough for Lila to hear, "he can't stay." Lila hesitated, glancing at the man's tired face. His shoulders drooped with defeat. In that moment, her heart made the decision before her brain could catch up. She poured a steaming cup of coffee and slid it across the counter toward him. "It's on me," she whispered. The man's eyes widened. Surprise flickered across his face, quickly replaced by a look of pure gratitude. The man wrapped his hands around the coffee cup like it was the first warmth he had felt all day. He brought the cup close to his lips, breathing in the smell before taking a small sip. His voice cracked when he spoke, barely more than a whisper. "Thank you, miss. Thank you so much." Lila smiled and gave a small nod. "You're welcome," she said softly. But from the counter, Hank Carter's frown deepened. When the man finished his coffee, he stood up slowly, pushing the empty cup back across the counter. He looked at Lila one more time, his eyes shining with emotion. "God bless you," he said quietly before stepping out into the chilly air. The little bell above the door gave a soft jingle as it closed behind him. Lila was about to turn back to her work when Hank stormed toward her, his footsteps heavy with anger. "You can't just give away free food, Lila." Hank barked, his face flushed red. "It was just a cup of coffee," Lila replied calmly, wiping her hands on her apron. "That's not your call to make." Hank shouted, "You're stealing from this diner." Customers sitting nearby froze, forks halfway to their mouths. Even the cooks peeked nervously from behind the kitchen door. The diner had fallen, completely silent. Lila's heart pounded hard on her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "He needed it," she said simply. "It was just one cup, and it made a difference to him." Hank shook his head, his voice like a whip. "Pack your things. You're fired." Lila swallowed hard. For a moment, she wanted to cry, but instead, she slowly untied her apron and placed it carefully on the counter. "I hope one day," she said quietly, her voice carrying across the still diner, "you understand that kindness is worth more than a few extra dollars." With her head held high, Lila turned and walked out the door. She didn't look back. The cool air outside hit her cheeks like a slap, but she kept moving. "I did the right thing," she whispered to herself, even as her eyes stung with tears. The next morning, Lila sat at the small kitchen table in her mother's apartment, staring blankly at a bowl of oatmeal. You're quiet today, her mother, Mrs. Brooks, said softly, noticing the dark circles under Lila's eyes. Lila forced a smile. Just tired, Mom. That's all. She didn't have the heart to tell her that she had lost her job. Not when hospital bills sat piled high on the counter. Across town, a sleek black car pulled into the gravel parking lot of Maggie's diner. The little silver bell above the door jingled as a tall man stepped inside. But this time, the man didn't wear a frayed coat or worn shoes. Instead, he wore a sharp, tailored suit. His shoes gleamed. His hair was neatly styled. Every head in the diner turned. Even Hank Carter's mouth fell open. The man walked straight to the counter, his steps confident. Hank rushed forward, wiping his hands nervously on his apron. "Good afternoon, sir," Hank said, trying to plaster on a smile. "Welcome to Maggie's Diner. What can I get for you today?" The man smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind that carried 1,000 secrets. "I think you already know why I'm here," he said calmly. Hank blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't." "My name is Jonathan Wells," the man interrupted. "I'm the CEO of Wells Hospitality Group. We own Maggie's Diner, and about 50 others just like it across the country." The color drained from Hank's face. Around the room, customers stared in stunned silence. Jonathan leaned in slightly. "Yesterday, I came here undercover," he said. "I wanted to see how my staff treated people," Jonathan continued. "Not just paying customers, but everyone who walked through those doors." Hank opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Jonathan's voice stayed even, but his eyes were sharp. "And you know what I saw? I saw one of your employees show more heart and humanity than I've seen in a long time." Jonathan's voice echoed in the quiet diner. "And then," he said, his tone tightening, "I watched you fire her for it." Hank swallowed hard. I didn't know, sir. She shouldn't have given away free coffee." Jonathan cut him off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Save it," he said coldly. "You showed me exactly what I needed to see." Later that afternoon, Jonathan sat in the back of the sleek black car again, a folder resting on the seat beside him. Inside the folder was Lila's home address. He tapped the driver on the shoulder. "Take me here," he said. "There's someone important we need to find." The driver nodded, and the car smoothly pulled away from the diner. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Lila sat by the window, staring out at the cloudy sky. Her little brother, Evan, walked in, tossing his backpack onto the chair. "Hey, sis," he said. "You okay?" Lila forced another smile. "Yeah, just thinking." In truth, her mind was racing. How would she find another job? How could she keep up with the bills? The doorbell rang, startling both Lila and Evan. "I'll get it," Evan said, jogging toward the door. He opened it and froze. There stood Jonathan Wells, looking every bit the powerful CO he was, holding a small folder in one hand and a kind smile on his face. "Is Lila Brooks home?" he asked. Evan stared, his mouth hanging open. "Yeah, come in." Lila stood up quickly as the stranger entered. Her heart thudded. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. Jonathan smiled warmly. "My name is Jonathan Wells," he said. "I came to offer you something. Something I believe you've more than earned." Lila's hands twisted nervously in front of her apron-less waist. "I'm sorry, but I'm not looking for anything right now," she said quickly, thinking he was offering a job she couldn't take. Jonathan chuckled gently. "I'm not here to sell you anything, Lila." He opened the folder and pulled out a crisp, white envelope. "I'm here to give you an opportunity and a thank you." Lila blinked in confusion. Thank you?" she asked, her voice uncertain. Jonathan nodded. "You didn't just pour a cup of coffee yesterday," he said. "You poured hope into someone who looked invisible to the world." He stepped closer, handing her the envelope. "And you reminded me of something important. That real service isn't about money. It's about humanity." With trembling fingers, Lila opened the envelope. Inside was an official letter offering her a management position at Maggie's Diner, but with a major promotion. Higher salary, full benefits, paid vacation, and written in bold letters. All medical expenses for Mrs. Brooks to be covered by Wells Hospitality Group. Lila gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "But why me?" she whispered, overwhelmed. Jonathan's eyes softened. "Because you saw a man who needed kindness, and instead of turning away, you gave him warmth without asking for anything in return." He smiled, a real smile this time. "People like you are rare, Lila, and we need more of you leading, not just serving." Tears welled up in Lila's eyes. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "You already said it yesterday," Jonathan said kindly, "when you chose kindness over rules." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a second, smaller envelope. "And one more thing," he added, "a scholarship fund for your brother Evan." Evan, who had been standing quietly by the door, suddenly gasped. "A scholarship," he echoed, stepping forward. Jonathan nodded, handing the envelope directly to him. "Full tuition covered. Anywhere you get accepted, son," he said warmly. Evan's hands shook as he took the envelope. His eyes filled with tears. He tried hard to blink away. Lila looked at her brother, then at Jonathan. "Why would you do all this?" she asked again, her voice thick with emotion. Jonathan smiled. "Because good hearts deserve good chances," he said. "And because the world needs to see what real kindness looks like." He glanced around the modest apartment, then back at her. "You changed the course of someone's day," Jonathan said. "And now, maybe we can change the course of your life." Lila wiped her eyes quickly with the sleeve of her sweater. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said. Jonathan chuckled softly. "Just keep being you," he replied. "That's more than enough." After Jonathan left, the apartment felt like it was glowing. Evan stared at his scholarship letter, still in disbelief. "Did that really just happen?" he asked, voice full of wonder. Lila laughed through her tears. "I think it did," she said, hugging him tightly. "For once, good things are finding us." Meanwhile, word about what had happened at Maggie's Diner spread faster than wildfire. Local news stations picked up the story. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #CupOfKindness and #LilisGift. Soon, people from all over the city came to Maggie's, not just for the food, but to experience the place where kindness had changed everything. The next morning, Lila stood nervously outside Maggie's Diner. It felt strange walking back after what had happened. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The little silver bell jingled. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Then, one by one, people began clapping. Customers, cooks, even the delivery guy by the counter. Lila's cheeks burned, but a smile broke across her face. Behind the counter stood Mr. Hank Carter, looking small and awkward in his apron. Jonathan Wells was next to him, arms folded across his chest. "Lila Brooks," Jonathan called out with a proud smile, "welcome back," as the new general manager of Maggie's Diner. The crowd cheered louder. Some even whistled. Hank shifted uncomfortably, muttering a stiff apology under his breath. Lila stepped behind the counter, tying on a fresh apron, a manager's apron this time. The fabric felt heavier somehow, filled with pride and responsibility. She turned to the staff and the customers. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady even though her hands trembled slightly. "I promise to keep Maggie's Diner a place where kindness is always on the menu." Later that afternoon, Lila sat at her favorite booth, sipping a hot cup of coffee. Her mother and Evan sat across from her, laughing together. Jonathan stopped by their table, his jacket slung over one shoulder. "I'll be around," he said, grinning. "But something tells me you've got this handled." Lila smiled back, feeling stronger than she had in years. Outside the diner, a small crowd had gathered, holding up signs that read, "Kindness matters, and one cup can change a life." News cameras flashed. But Lila didn't care about the tension. What mattered was her family, safe, healthy, and hopeful again, and the little diner that had given her so much more than a paycheck. As the sun dipped low behind the buildings, painting the sky in gold and pink, Lila leaned against the doorframe of Maggie's and watched the world go by. A little girl skipped past, smiling up at her. Lila smiled back, because sometimes she realized the smallest acts, a warm cup of coffee, a kind word, a brave choice, ripple out farther than anyone can imagine. And kindness? It always finds its way back.